Hey, I've been better. I've been better. Obviously, it was a bit of an eventful weekend. I finally got my phone back.
Oh,
It
you got
feels
a
a
new
bit weird not
phone.
living with a phone. Yeah. I had an absolute nightmare. The screen completely smashed up, and it's cost me 400 flipping pounds to repair
Bloody
it. So,
hell. So
yeah, I'm not that happy.
for context, people, we were supposed to meet outside Stamford Bridge for this preview yesterday, but Nini lost his phone or broke his phone. But now he's got his phone back and he managed to meet us here live on stream. But good to have you, mate.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Obviously, I heard what you were saying before. It seems to be feeling a little bit delusional if Timo Werner is going to do anything for us.
As a Chelsea fan, you just must go into this fixture be like calm, like never ever nervous going
Mate,
into this
Timo Werner
fixture.
won you the Champions League, mate.
Hey, to be fair, it was Kai Havertz getting the wrong German mixed up.
Yeah, it's
But
true.
um, but yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's listen, it's always a contest. We have to play well to beat you guys, and it is a lot of fine margins. A lot of things that go our way. But I also feel because of that psychological factor, I feel like the players get a real big boost. It's like, okay, no matter how the season's going, the rules do not matter once you play against Tottenham. And
Mhm.
hopefully, you guys know 9 games left. We're hoping we can get Champions League football. A result against Spurs hopefully could do that. But actually, last time we beat you guys 4-3 at your stadium, the run of form didn't really come after that. So I don't know. Maybe I'm looking into things a bit too much. But listen, getting a win after international break against you guys is always a nice way to get ready for a really big end to the season.
Yeah.
Nini, talk to me about Enzo Maresca because the way I look at it, I don't know if you were hearing what I was saying before, but Pochettino last season, I thought he was gathering some momentum towards the back end of the season. He got sacked or whatever happened between Poch and Chelsea. Maresca comes in, smashes it straight away, hits the ground running, and then it's just kind of gone so flat for Chelsea over the past 4 months or however long it's been. Like, what's your opinions on Enzo Maresca right now? And do you think in hindsight that it was a good decision to part ways with Poch at the time?
I mean, that's such a meaty question you're asking me. I get some controversy for my opinions on Pochettino. Listen, he wasn't perfect at times, but my thing was always I could kind of contextually understand why he was forced into certain decisions that he made.
Mm.
And I think considering the things working against him, maybe an injury crisis that was a lot worse last season compared to this season as well. He was able to do as best he could with the components he had around him. The players loved playing under him. I like some of the football that we played too. And listen, if he had remained here, it would have been really interesting to see how he would continue and develop his work for this season. But ultimately, he left not because he was sacked for underperforming, but more because there was just a completely different alignment between himself and the boards. Poch wanted more experience. He wanted to have more of a say. And I mean, I get it. This is a guy that's been a player at the highest level internationally.
Yeah.
Played for his nation, managed across the world, been at big clubs. And when you're answering to directors, maybe
Some say the biggest.
junior. Hey, steady on. But when you're answering to directors and maybe, guys for 15 years your junior, when you've been in this game for a long time, I can see how it gets a bit difficult to do what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
So he moved on and we hired a manager, Maresca, who was hired as a head coach, which means that he accepts the limitations he has in terms of a say in what he can do. He's only there to coach the guys, improve them, make them better. And I'd say similar to Poch, he has also shown more positives compared to negatives. It's been a bit of a weird one. I think injuries, of course, did destabilize us a little bit. But on top of that too, I don't know how to really just summarize things without just giving really lazy takes. Because a lot of the times when we weren't winning games during that bad run of form, I would say we were the better team for 70% of the game. But maybe due to youthful inexperience and player limitations, we weren't good enough to control the last 30% of games, hold your shape, keep your position. Every time he used to play, it was play to get the next goal. And sometimes you have to slow the pace down. Sometimes you have to play to win, right? And it did feel like we got, caught out for those moments. And the second big thing that really hit us was teams started to find different systems now to cope against us. We saw a lot of teams now prioritizing putting men behind the ball, prioritizing using a back five to match us man v man. And when teams started to figure out a better defensive approach against us, alongside the fact that we started to slowly lose players to injuries, having no Nico Jackson. The midfield was getting quite tired in games. Cole Palmer, naturally losing a little bit of form. He can't do everything by himself. There were some difficulties in those moments. So I think Maresca realized, you know what, maybe it's time for us to win a little bit ugly, play a bit safe. We got results against relegation teams, your Leicester, Southampton's, not the most enigmatic performances, the most exciting ones, but maybe Maresca's thinking to himself, you know what, we played these games a million times where we played to win, we played to attack, and then we beat ourselves by losing control of the game. And we've dropped so many points during the start of the bad run of form, right? But again, it hit its limits against Arsenal. I thought that was a really dry performance against them, really disappointing. It felt like we did the defending for Arsenal, basically, because there was just no imagination in terms of our build-up play to play through them to attack, no pace in what we were doing in the final thirds, and just, this feeling that maybe teams are really sussing out how to play against us, because as a fan, you constantly feel like you're watching the same game week in, week out, the same passing patterns, the same movements from the players, this never-ending playing passes out wide only for wingers to get doubled up on, then they're playing it back to the center backs and vice versa. So the only thing working in our favor right now is that international break now is like a bit of a recharge period for the team, and we have lots of players who have come back from injury, so the pace is there. We got a natural striker up front again. Cole Palmer now has had a bit of a rest for a good 2 weeks, which he's not really had since the end of last season. And we have our defenders coming back too. So it does feel like this is the perfect opportunity to kind of reset what's going on and hopefully get a bit inspired by all the good stuff he was doing during the first half of the season. So I do think against Spurs, it's going to be a good one. And I know I'm giving you guys like a real like long-winded answer.
All right.
But Maresca, I'd say, has shown more positives and negatives. I accept he won't be perfect. He's still figuring out the team, the limitations. We had these periods where when we had no striker, he was experimenting with like maybe Palmer up front one game and Kunku up front the other, and it bore no results against Brighton in both games. So, it hasn't been ideal for him, but at least we are still somehow in a bit of got a fighting chance now to get Champions League football, and it really is about what we do now. So yeah, tomorrow is going to be a massive game against you guys. I'm not feeling like super confident, like it's a guaranteed win, because I need to see the performance. If I see in the first 30 minutes, we're up, we're firing, we're confident, then I'll know how the game is going to end.
Maresca has said a few times this season that his job isn't dependent on getting Champions League. Do you think he's saying the truth?
No, absolutely not. I think that was like that was absolute cap. That was what he said at the start, but I think it's quite obvious now that there is real pressure on us to try and secure Champions League football. We're missing out on front of shirt sponsors. We've rejected deals under the 60 million a year that we want to get. All our players, that we signed on the Clear Lake, in their contracts, they earn less money when there's no CL football. They don't want to be getting underpaid for a consecutive year. There's a lot of things riding behind how ambitious we can be in the market. We missed out on a lot of money in terms of our club revenue for last season by not having CL football. So at the start, I think that was the sentiment he was expressing, to maybe take pressure away from what was happening. But now everything is starting to heat up a lot. And he even confirmed a few weeks back, no, I never said CL is not important. Champions League is important. And even in his presser today, every game that we played, the last 9 games, we take every game seriously now. So yeah, there's massive pressure on us to get CL qualification.
He's saying it like he wasn't taking the game seriously before. Like, what's that all about?
You know what? I don't know. I cover these like presses all the time. A lot of times these guys are just like, they go into full NPC mode when they're doing their media duties. It's like you can't even take anything serious from what they're saying, right? So I don't know, but that was in the past. The reality is right now, CL is important. So
Yeah.
massive pressure.
Yeah, he's been very, like, a lot of the times, Maresca, in his press conferences, very kind of either confrontational, very open and honest, I think it's fair to say, maybe even to a detriment. How do you feel like he comes across in some of his press conferences, even the way he feel like he was, I remember at the beginning of the season, very honest about Sterling, saying, look, he's not going to get any minutes here, he needs to leave, and when he was leaving him out of squad, just very, very honest. Like, do you like that approach from him, or sometimes does he have to rein it in, do you think?
I actually have a different take on that. I feel like I'm not going to see the full honesty Maresca until next season. Like if we end the season with Conference League and CL, he would have lasted his first year here, which doesn't happen for all managers. And when you're the head coach, you need to slowly build up your, your clout behind the scenes, right? Your trust, your recognition. So I say this because a lot of times there has been many contradictions, like even what you were saying before about CL not being important, and now fast forward a few weeks later, it is very much important. During preseason, he praised Sterling as someone important, only to then change his mind. He's done that quite a lot. And obviously that comes with the responsibilities of being a head coach. If the directors and the guys above are saying, no, we don't see this guy in the future in the team, Maresca then has to kind of reconfigure his opinions then in terms of what he's communicating, right? And he can't overdo it. He knows exactly what he was hired to be. But I think if he lasts more time here, I think we'll slowly see him add more of his personality, in my opinion.
I want to ask you, Nini, about the Chelsea fans' protests against Clear Lake and Bowley and Igbali. And I'm looking at it from an outsider looking in, and I'm like thinking, like, what the hell is going on here? They've only been here for a year or two. Spurs have had Daniel Levy and Enoch for 22 years or 23 years, 24 years maybe even now. And only now we're starting to see like protests for many range of different reasons. But you guys have had Bowley for 2 years or however long, I don't know how long it's been.
2022, I think.
2022, yeah. So 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And you're already starting to protest. I mean, what are these protests about? I know he's not perfect. I know he's made many mistakes, but surely you need to see him see out his vision first before protesting.
Yeah, that was a very, very like testing, interesting time when it came through. Like it was very random, like when the protest got announced, like on socials. Even the guy who first put it out there, he got some clout from, got some amplification from bigger accounts. He wasn't even able to turn up to the own protest that he obviously had called out for, which kind of sums things up a little bit. But it'll be easy for me to be, like taking the piss, kind of laughing it off, not taking it serious. I think for myself, I was looking behind the layers behind, why is there frustration? To the outsiders, we look quite entitled, Yeah. I mean, we spent a ton of money. We bought a lot of players. We can't say that there hasn't been any ambition shown or any efforts shown. We even have some super exciting talents, Esteval Williams and stuff that we never were able to secure before, right? So it's not everything is in the mud. Not everything is terrible and not everything's bad. But I think maybe the sentiment, maybe it's like a kind of like a Prem-wide sentiment where it does feel like maybe the fans, like the lifeblood of clubs now, feel more like an afterthought behind what's happening, right? You're a fan of this football club. You've seen some American investors, billionaires, all these investors buying up clubs left, right, and center, prioritizing their business models and plans. You were excited at first, and then naturally you think, okay, am I going to be another victim to, wealthy investors that don't have, my best intentions? I know I'm saying it wrong, but they don't have me, the fan, on their minds.
Yeah.
I'm just a product in their opinion. We spent all this money. Why could we not have spent that on more established players that would allow us to compete straight away? Because there was a ton of advantages. They bought the club debt-free. They invested all this money into it. There's a million ways to like improve a football club, right? Was a model to like only buy guys under 23 and like keep it so strict? Was that the only approach that could be shown? Especially when you're a fan that's spending a lot of money going to these games on traveling expenses, the ticket prices going up. XYZ. And, you're told you're given a lot of miscommunication throughout the media in terms of the ambitions of what's happening with the football club. And it's just like, you're just not really cared about as much. You're just an afterthought for, this grand investment plan and vision from, guys above you at the football club. So I don't know. Maybe I'm not explaining it as concisely as I'd like, but I think that was the type of feeling I was getting from the fan base in terms of why a few of them felt like they wanted to just, release their frustrations. On the other hand, it wasn't the most focused one. When guys are calling out for Clear Lake, it feels like it's a bit of a missed opportunity. In my videos, I was saying, listen, if you're going to go to these protests with thoughts that Clear Lake and Body will sell up, this is just, in a way, like immature angst, because there's no way in hell they're even allowed to sell, not until 2032. They can't take out dividends until then. And when you're investors at this scale, you don't go for quick flip profits. You want to be making a return every single year for decades plus, if you can, right? So that felt like a bit of a missed opportunity, because if your frustration was more around the direction of the club, feeling like the directors maybe aren't really in line with the managers, not really helping them as much because they're prioritizing business models that, we still don't know whether this whole youth thing will work and will become successful in 2 years, 3 years, even 5 years from now, right? If that was the main energy you had, I think it could have been more than fine to express that. I think any fan from any club has the right to do that when you're paying all this money and showing so much investment in your team. But on the other hand, I was a bit disappointed by just a lot of, random angst that was getting thrown around that kind of lost the focus of what the protest could have been.
Do you feel like, though, these protests will die down if your form turns it'll die down very quickly? Because a few wins, all of a sudden, you're currently in the top 4 anyway. Is there going to be much to protest about?
I mean, yeah, let's keep it real. You're right. That will definitely change up overnight, Just to even add to that too, I think the manner in which the protests form, came after a January window where, let's say, for example, certain players that we already bought, 6 months later, they're out the door. It's not expressing like a confidence. It's not expressing confidence to the fans that this is a project that is really, making sense now, and we're getting there, because you've kind of been starting and stopping in a way for the last 3 years, 5 windows in a row now. So I don't know. The only thing now to really just bring some confidence back is getting CL football and hopefully having one final window where we can really add proper additions now, so we can just stop this never-ending cycle of buying and selling, buying and selling, buying and selling. Because it's just getting a bit ridiculous now, to be honest.
How are you looking at Spurs, Nini? Obviously, there's Ange Postecoglou coming under a lot of pressure right now. Don't laugh straight away when I mention Tottenham. Coming under a lot of pressure right now. Do you feel like, taking your Chelsea hat off, do you feel like Ange Postecoglou is, feeling the effects of the injuries? Do you think he does have a future 100%. Here at Tottenham? Like, what's 100%. Your feeling between Ange Postecoglou and Spurs right now?
I mean, the thing is, I knew what Ange was doing in Asia and doing for Celtic. I mean, he's a guy I respect. I know he's easy to clown on right now because Spurs aren't winning, but I like his personality, to be fair. I like that type of fiery side he has. It doesn't really bother me. Maybe, again, this is the thing with management, right? It's easy when everything is working how it's supposed to be. When you have a full strength team, when you have players who are fully fit and on form. I'm sure you've seen beautiful football from him at times, and everything, when all the cylinders are firing at the same time, right? But a lot of times you can't, managers can't be judged by what they can do at their best states. I think they also have to be judged by how they adapt when things aren't working. And maybe this is where, Ange, who's like very much, headstrong and a very strong believer in his way of playing, hasn't maybe made things as easy for you guys based on how porous you are to play against, especially in transitional moments. Like when we beat you guys 3-4, you had an incredible advantage. We gifted 2 mistakes, 2 goals up straight away. and obviously we came back to win the game 4-3. And I kind of feel like the game tomorrow will go down a similar way. I think it is going to be very much an open game because that's what Ange is a supporter of. And I think that comes at the detriment sometimes when forms against the players, tons of injuries are against you guys as well, especially in midfield, especially in defense as well. It just creates maybe like a negative type of situation for you guys. So I'm expecting, I don't know, I like to say an easy meal, but equally, I don't know what type of Chelsea I'm going to see after international break. I mean, there's been a million games that we've even played well and still not got a result. So it easily could be a draw tomorrow. But I don't know. I think because you guys are just a bit too open, been yo-yoing with like positive results against United and then defeats to Fulham. And they're all like in a very similar manner, like the goals you concede and the way you lose control of games and the way you kind of defeat yourselves at times. I feel like there's an advantage for us against you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, I hear that. I definitely hear that. But I also looking at the way Chelsea are playing at the moment, and in the last 17 games, you've only beaten teams in the bottom 5, right? And I know Spurs aren't far off that bottom 5 right now.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong, we're not far off it, but we've also got our own players coming back, and we've got Coutinho Romero, Mickey van der Ven that are going to be back at centre back, and I feel like those two can have a massive impact in this game tomorrow. And I'm looking at the way you attack. I mean, Cole Palmer's not really doing it at the moment. Pedro Neto hasn't really excited me that much. Sancho and Kunku, all these kind of players. I looked at your forward line coming into the season and first part of the season. I was like, wow, look at Chelsea's forward options. Yeah. Unbelievable. But it just hasn't really materialized like that this season. So I'm looking at our defensive structure, maybe not the structure, but more the personnel. And I feel like we can handle it.
Maybe. I mean, obviously, your guys still need like a run of games to maybe like find their confidence on the field, right? But I don't know. I just feel like after international break, it's a great reset period. You're away from the pressure. You're able to have like some rest now to get your confidence back, come back with a more fresh minds. But playing at home, you guys never do anything against us away from home. You
we'll always have that Dele Alli brace. Nini.
Exactly.
We'll always have that. You can't take that away from
Records
us.
are there to be broken, Nini.
Records are there. That's let's not use that word too loosely, my guys. But but yeah, obviously you guys have certain players coming back. But I just think that with Noni coming back, Nico back, Cole Palmer, I feel like a lot of the stuff we were doing functionally well can return now that we have our best attack ready for that game. Now that we have Fofana back in defense, we can now press higher, go man v man when it comes to pressing a lot stronger. I don't know. I feel like we got a lot of advantages our way for tomorrow. Yeah, man. I think you guys have to play like out a game of your lives to get a result tomorrow.
Yeah,
I think we just have to remain professional. If we're professional tomorrow, I think we can get this game sealed.
What's your score prediction?
My prediction tomorrow, I'm going for a 2-1 win to us.
2-1.
Tight game then you're going for still.
Tight.
You going there, Nini? You going to be at the game?
Nah, sadly no. I mean, again, now that I'm like a one-man army with my channel, like I used to be a season ticket holder from like the age of 6 years old all the way until the 19-20 season, like home away, abroad. But yeah, since having the channel, I'm just unable to go to games and then get stuff out there at the same time. So I've had to sacrifice it, sadly. But are you guys? I'm guessing you guys are going there, aren't you?
I'm going. Sims in the studio tomorrow.
Studio.
Okay.
I hate going to Stamford Bridge though. It's just like you get yourselves up for it every time, and then it's just bloody the same result.
What do you think about the Chelsea fans singing "F off Tottenham" before every game you play?
I just sometimes I wish I could just hear abuse sent towards other clubs. It's the only thing I'm hearing is Tottenham my whole life. It's just like, please, I don't even think Tottenham fans are thinking about us as much as we think about you guys sometimes.
Definitely not. We've got Arsenal in our heads. We need to focus our hate towards Arsenal.